For a president known for his unpredictability, Donald Trump's sudden U-turn late last night, urging Republicans to vote to release the Epstein Files, shouldn't be a surprise. And yet it is. Posting on Truth Social, the president said it's time to move on from this Democrat hoax perpetuated by radical left lunatics, going on to say, nobody cared about Jeffrey Epstein when he was alive, and if the Democrats had anything, they would have released it before our landslide election victory. Some members of the Republican Party are being used, and we can't let that happen.
Unfortunately, it has all come down to the Epstein Files, and that is shocking.
One of the used Republican members he may be referring to is his longtime ally turned critic, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who he has called a traitor.
I believe the country deserves transparency in these files, and I don't believe that rich, powerful people should be protected if they have done anything wrong. And so I'm standing with the women, and I will continue to do my small part to get the files released.
The president has faced pressure from both outside and within the Republican Party. Yesterday, the House Speaker said releasing the files should help put to rest allegations that the president had any connection to Epstein's abuse and trafficking of underage girls.
He had nothing to do with it. President Trump has clean hands. He's not worried about it. I talk to him all the time. He has nothing to do with this. He's frustrated that they're turning it into a political issue, and it's not surprising because the Democrats have nothing else to talk about.
The publication of more than 20,000 pages of Epstein emails just last week has only added more pressure to release the remaining documents. Some of the emails mention the president. In an email sent to Ghislaine Maxwell in 2011, the prolific sex offender Jeffrey Epstein said,
I want you to realize that that dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned, police chief, etc. I'm 75% there.
The White House claimed the victim reference was prominent Epstein accuser Virginia Giuffre, who has said on numerous occasions that President Trump was not involved in any wrongdoing. In another one of the exchanges published by the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, the journalist Michael Wolff advised Epstein to talk about his connection with Trump before a CNN presidential debate in 2015.
I hear CNN planning to ask Trump tonight about his relationship with you, either on air or in scrum afterwards.
Epstein asks,
If we were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be?
I think you should let him hang himself.
Wolff replied. In a separate exchange, Epstein told Wolff Trump knew about the girls, though it was not clear what that phrase meant. Donald Trump has denied any wrongdoing and said that he fell out with Epstein years before the disgraced financier's convictions. But Democrats on the House Oversight Committee have said the messages raised serious questions about Donald Trump and his knowledge of Epstein's horrific crimes.
I was 14 years old.
I was 16 years old.
I was 16.
17.
14 years old.
Beyond the politics are Epstein's victims, still seeking some form of justice. Last night, some of them released this video, urging lawmakers to vote to release the files. Donald Trump has weathered many political storms before, but this is a story that won't go away. In giving the green light to release the files, he's hoping it finally will. But that, of course, depends on whether the files are quite as boring as he claims. I'm joined now by Greg Swenson, chairman of Republican Overseas in the UK. Greg, why do you think this sudden U-turn by the president?
I think it's a combination of things, Anya. There is that, that pressure from the so-called MAGA right, the true base of the party that's really been, encouraging the president, I'll use that term lightly, to flip on this. And the second thing is, the president's not afraid to pivot on issues. He's done that historically. He kind of reads the room in many ways. Even though he's not, sometimes he's volatile and sometimes he's pretty outspoken, but he's not afraid to pivot. And I think he's been reading the tea leaves here.
Well, yeah, you say that, but he obviously has been under pressure for some time. Isn't it a case that he's just trying to spin it in his favour before this vote, which inevitably will most likely go through with or without his support?
Yeah. I mean, that could be right, and I'm not sure what his thinking is, but I think there might have been that inevitability, but also I think he views it as a distraction, and I think even some others on the right, not just the MAGA right, but others have said, let's just get it over with, right? Because every time the Democrats leak a document, it just takes away from the issues at hand. I mean, we had a big week last week. The end of the shutdown was quite the news here in the U.S., and yet most of the European media, all they wanted to talk about was Epstein.
Presumably, there's no guarantee that this will stop being a distraction once the files are released.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I think in many ways it might just be the end of it, because if there was any smoking gun in the files, I guarantee you the Democrats would have released it in October of 2024 before the election, and that's when they were controlling at least the Senate and the White House. And even the two emails last week were relatively meaningless, right? So much of this, again, I think is a distraction, and it's best to just get it over with. And by the way, I think the White House and the campaign before the election, perhaps overpromised in many conversations about the files. They were saying that the Democrats should have released it, and they didn't. So they sort of created their own headache here.
And of course, during this time, there's been big cracks within the Republican Party itself.
Yeah,
including that big fallout with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Do you think that the Republicans can move on from this?
Oh, definitely. I mean, look, I think having, sort of disagreements and healthy arguments in the
Well, I
party.
wouldn't call them healthy. He's called her a traitor and
Yeah, I know. And but I do think disagreement is okay. And I think besides MTG, there are, healthy and productive conversations about this and other issues as well. So I think, the fact that it's MTG, it gets a little bit more attention. And I think her, she's in many ways, she's kind of changed a lot. She's not just she's not just, banging the table on this issue. She's been going on often, I would say, unfriendly media, and has kind of turned the page and said, I think she's had some quotes like, I'm sorry about being involved in toxic politics. That's all good. I think, the fact that she's probably dialing it down a bit is probably good for her and good for the party.
Great. Greg Swenson, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thanks for having me on, Anya.